Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of John Matrixx Talks Movies. If this is your first time to the channel, please hit that little red subscribe button at the bottom right hand corner to catch future videos from me. Today, we're going to review Venom and also talk about the Rotten Tomatoes score for the movie. Now, I watched this movie yesterday when it came out, and this review will have some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, you don't want to be spoiled, you probably don't want to listen to this. But let's jump right into it. I really did enjoy this movie. It was a fun ride, and the chemistry between Venom and Eddie Brock, if you want to call Venom his own character, because we both know that Tom Hardy is doing the voice of Venom, and of course he is Eddie Brock. Their chemistry is so good. There is a lot of humor between the two characters, and it makes this movie a lot more of a comedy than what I initially thought that it would be. But as far as the movie overall, you will really enjoy this movie. If you saw the Rotten Tomatoes scores, you will see that the Rotten Tomatoes score is pretty low, and I will get into that later on in this review. Now, if you've actually seen The Predator and Venom, you'll notice that there are a lot of undertones that are very, very similar in each movie. Both movies start off with a ship coming into the Earth from space. And in the case of Venom, it's actually one of our own ships that's actually carrying the symbiotes, unlike the Predator, where it's just a Predator ship crashing into the Earth. But both of these movies are very, very similar in that both movies want to create a hybrid of humans and aliens. So I just thought that that was probably just a very good coincidence that both of these are happening in both movies. I don't know if the directors talked to each other or what, but it did catch me by surprise at how similar these two movies are. Now let's jump into the Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie. It seems that the critics really hated this movie. The Rotten Tomatoes score by the critics is 31. The top critics, it's even worse at 21. However, the audience absolutely loved this movie. It has an 89. So I don't know why there's such a huge difference between what the critics like and what the audience likes. Now, I understand that being a movie critic, you have to be critical, but this is preposterous that they would hate this movie so much and that the audience would absolutely love the movie a lot more. Like I said, the audience score is at 89, and it's probably going to climb as more people actually see this movie. Now, the critics, I can't take them too seriously when it comes to movies. They gave this movie a 31. The critics also gave Solo a 70%. These same critics also gave The Last Jedi a 91. And Venom is by far and away light years better than either of those two movies. Now, Richard Roeper calls this a tone-deaf, uneven, and maddening dumb clunker that never settles on an identity, all the way to the closing credits. I really do disagree with him on that. Tone-deaf? No. It does set the tone what this movie is about. Carlton Drake, who is played by Riz Ahmed, he wants to take these symbiotes and infuse them with humans so he can create like this hybrid human, because he fears that humans are on the brink of extinction. Very similar to what you would see in The Predator, I should say. But Riz Ahmed's character as Dr. Carlton Drake, he is a different type of villain. And by the way, he is not actually the main villain. The main villain in this movie is actually Riot, who is another symbiote in this movie. You actually see him take over Dr. Drake in the movie. But Carlton Drake, he feels like what he is doing is for the betterment of humanity. So he actually goes out, he takes homeless people or people with nothing in the world off the streets, and he does these tests on their bodies, or actually while they're alive, with the symbiote. In a lot of cases, the symbiote actually ends up killing the host, because it has to be a perfect DNA match. So the symbiote that's Riot, who you actually see from the beginning of the movie, he actually ends up taking over several bodies until he ends up in Dr. Carlton Drake. Now, we don't really get to see Riot per se until he actually gets into Dr. Drake. I think that is a flaw in the movie. I wish that we could have got more Riot in the movie. He's this big time symbiote, and he goes head to head with Eddie Brock and Venom. So that is kind of a flaw right there, that Riot wasn't established earlier in a different type of way. Now, one of the critics asked, is this a comedy or is it a action film? It says, makes no pretense of being anything more than a superhero film, trading the thematic material present in most major superhero adventures for biting off people's heads. Now, to me, is this a comedy or is it action film? It's both, and I don't have a problem with that. If you look at a lot of the superhero movies, they're actually both. Look at Thor. Thor, it is a superhero film. It is also a comedy. Also, look at the original Superman with Christopher Reeves. It is an action movie. It is also a comedy. It has comedic elements as well as great action. So that is not a legitimate criticism to me. Now, one of the things that kind of wasn't really a good thing to me was the character of Dr. Dora Skirth, who is played by Jenny Slate. Now, her character actually works for Carlton Drake, and she is the one that kind of sees that Carlton Drake is doing some bad things with the people that he's using these experiments on, and she's the one that reaches out to Eddie Brock for help, because he's a reporter and he does reports the news and stuff like that. So she reaches out to him, but she gets caught by Drake's people, and she pretty much is killed off pretty fast. And I thought that she would have a bigger role in helping Eddie, but she really didn't. Or to me, it just wasn't long enough. All in all, this movie could have been better as a R-rated movie. Now, I understand why they didn't want to make it an R-rated movie. You want to get it to the biggest possible audience you can and also maximize the profits. So making an R-rated movie based on a comic book is risky. You can actually lose money. Well, not necessarily lose money on the film, but you wouldn't make as much money as you would if it was like PG or PG-13. So I understand that, but it was a fun ride. There is head-biting scenes, but you don't actually get to see the bodies. The only thing you do is you really just see Venom biting off the head, but you don't see anything after that. So that kind of, I think, helped it from getting an R rating, which could actually probably hurt box office numbers. But all in all, this is a very good movie. I recommend seeing it. I would just ignore the Rotten Tomatoes scores and the critics. This is a good movie. Now, if you've seen it, please drop a comment. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you disagree with me. If you enjoyed the content for today, please give a thumbs up on the video. If you're new here to the channel, please subscribe, and we will catch you on the next video. John Matrixx, out.